Welcome back to Pulse of the Planet, bringing you the latest news from around the world. In the spring of 2025, a bold move from Washington sent shockwaves through the global auto industry. A sweeping 25% tariff slapped on all imported vehicles and parts. The announcement reverberated from the halls of government to the bustling ports and showrooms around the world, catching automakers and consumers off guard. This wasn't about new technology or innovation, but rather the revival of an old economic weapon, the tariff. The goal was clear: to pressure automakers to shift production and investment back to American soil, reviving domestic manufacturing and jobs. Automakers could only avoid the hefty new tax if their vehicles were assembled in the United States and contained at least 85% North American-made parts. This strict requirement forced companies to scrutinize every bolt and component in their supply chains. Suddenly, every car company, big or small, had to rethink their entire global strategy. Executives weighed whether to absorb the extra costs, pass them on to consumers through higher prices, or completely overhaul their production lines and sourcing. The globalized model that had defined the industry for decades, where parts and vehicles crisscrossed continents, was shattered almost overnight, leaving supply chains in disarray and warehouses scrambling to adapt. The auto industry, already grappling with the rapid rise of electric vehicles, changing consumer preferences, and fierce international competition, now faced a new and urgent challenge. Long-term decisions about where to build, what to sell, and how to survive had to be made quickly. This is the story of how a single government decision rippled outward, reshaping boardroom strategies, straining family budgets, and ultimately changing the price, availability, and very identity of the modern automobile for millions of people. A tariff is a tax placed on goods that are brought into a country from abroad, often referred to as imports. It's one of the oldest tools governments use to regulate trade and influence the flow of products across borders. The main idea behind a tariff is to make foreign products more expensive, so that locally made goods seem more attractive to buyers. This can shift consumer choices and encourage people to support domestic businesses. For example, when a car arrives from Japan or auto parts come in from South Korea, the US government charges a fee to the importer. This fee is added to the cost of the product, making it more expensive for American buyers. The goal of these tariffs is to protect local industries from foreign competition, support jobs for American workers, and sometimes to raise money for the government or gain leverage in international trade negotiations. For instance, if a foreign car is much cheaper than an American-made one, a tariff can help level the playing field. By increasing the price of the imported car, the American-made car may become the better deal for consumers. However, tariffs can have unintended side effects. They often raise costs for companies that depend on imported materials or parts, and these higher costs are usually passed on to consumers in the form of increased prices. Tariffs can also trigger retaliation from other countries, leading to escalating trade wars. This back and forth can disrupt global supply chains, delay shipments, and create uncertainty for businesses and workers alike. The 2025 auto tariffs, for example, were introduced as a matter of national security, but in reality, their effects rippled through the economy in ways that were far more complicated than anyone expected. Tariffs can protect industries and jobs, but they can also provoke trade partners, disrupt markets, and contribute to rising prices for everyone. Understanding tariffs means recognizing both their intended benefits and their potential costs. The 25% tariff wasn't a tweak, it was a shock that upended the auto sector's global playbook. Suddenly, profitable models like the Buick Encore GX and Chevy Trailblazer, built in South Korea, became much more expensive to import. Even US-assembled cars faced higher costs if they used too many foreign parts. Automakers scrambled. Should they raise prices and risk losing customers, or eat the costs and slash profits? The only escape: shift production to North America, a massive, costly undertaking. General Motors, for example, moved Chevy Blazer production from Mexico to Tennessee, disrupting workers and communities on both sides of the border. The tariffs forced the industry to unravel decades of global integration, launching a costly, uncertain transformation. The auto world would never be the same. No company felt the sting of the new tariffs more than General Motors, a giant in the American auto industry with deep global ties. The sudden policy shift sent shockwaves through every level of the company, from the boardroom to the factory floor. GM estimated the tariffs could cost a staggering $45 billion in 2025 alone, threatening its profits and sending its stock tumbling on Wall Street. Investors and analysts watched nervously as the company's financial outlook darkened almost overnight. At first, GM chose to absorb the extra costs, hoping to shield customers and protect sales. But this strategy came at a steep price, slashing profit margins and putting immense pressure on leadership to find a sustainable solution. It quickly became clear this couldn't last, so GM announced a bold $4 billion investment to reshore production, moving key models like the Cadillac Escalade and Chevy Blazer to U.S. plants. This was a dramatic pivot in the company's manufacturing strategy. The shift created thousands of new jobs in America, sparking celebrations among U.S. auto workers. But it also meant layoffs and uncertainty for workers in Mexico, highlighting the complex reality of protectionism, where some win and others lose. GM's old global strategy, built on efficiency and international supply chains, was out. In its place came a new, costlier and more regional approach, as the company scrambled to adapt to a rapidly changing world. The tariffs forced GM to gamble on a future built around American factories, betting that the pain and expense of transition would eventually pay off in stability and growth. The company's transformation was messy, expensive, and far from guaranteed. Every step forward brought new challenges, from supply chain disruptions to workforce retraining. The new rules of the road were being written in real time, forcing GM and the entire industry to adapt or risk being left behind in a world where change was the only constant. The tariffs' impact reached from factory floors to family driveways. GM workers saw bonuses shrink by thousands, as profits were squeezed. New U.S. factory investments created jobs, but the reshuffling also meant layoffs and uncertainty elsewhere. For consumers, the threat was higher prices. Analysts warned tariffs could add thousands to the cost of a new car. Some models, especially smaller affordable imports, risked disappearing from showrooms. The market shifted toward larger, pricier vehicles built in the U.S., while choices for budget-conscious buyers shrank. The policy's promise of more American jobs came with trade-offs, higher prices, fewer options, and a turbulent job market. The true cost of the tariffs was measured not just in dollars, but in the everyday choices and challenges faced by American families. The driveway became the front line of trade policy. The 2025 auto tariffs sparked fierce debate, exposing deep divides over trade. Supporters saw them as a bold move to revive U.S. manufacturing, protect jobs, and ensure national security. They pointed to new factory jobs as proof of success. Critics called tariffs a blunt, damaging tool, raising costs for businesses and consumers and risking trade wars. They argued that in a global economy, tariffs disrupt supply chains and make American products less competitive. Retaliation from other countries threatened U.S. exports, especially in agriculture. The estimated $5 billion in lost profits for Detroit's automakers was cited as evidence of harm. The debate boiled down to a tough question: protect jobs at home or keep prices low for everyone? The 2025 auto tariffs proved that trade policy isn't just theory, it's real life, with consequences that ripple through every layer of society. A single government decision triggered a chain reaction, from global supply lines to local dealerships, affecting businesses both large and small. For GM, it meant billions in losses and a scramble to rebuild in America, forcing tough choices and urgent action. For workers, it meant shrinking bonuses or new jobs, sometimes both, and always uncertainty about the future. For families, it meant higher prices and fewer choices, making car shopping a bigger challenge than ever before. Every trade policy has winners and losers, and the costs and benefits rarely fall evenly across the population. In the end, the price of a car became a symbol of the true cost of protectionism, visible to everyone who walked into a dealership.